What's up, guys, and welcome back to another video, part 5 of What If Deku Had Sun Jinwoo's powers, also known as solo leveling. And if you look over on the left, or actually it's on the right, my bad, I'm looking at my screen from a different angle currently, you'll see a picture of a female. That's what LC looks like. I figured I would put a picture up there because I know I'm not super good at explaining how characters look, but that's how she does look. Where we last left off, Deku had gone first place, giving him 10,000 points and putting a big red target saying "hit me" on his back. Deku, after receiving the 10 points, was looking around for teammates. He had asked Uraraka, and Uraraka had agreed. And then Deku was walking around. Deku saw that Bakugou had already formed a team, so he figured it would be best not to ask him. He kept looking around. He ended up finding Tokiyami and asked him to join, which Tokiyami said yes. He had seen Deku's shadows in the past, and because of it, Deku and Tokiyami were on slightly better terms because they both had, well, Tokiyami assumed he had a shadow manipulation quirk, but we all know that's not the case. And Tokiyami also knows now. So they really didn't get too much further on, but he still knew. And then a girl with weird pink hair ran over to Deku, and she asked to join Deku's team, which caught Deku off guard, because no one had wanted to join his team thanks to 10 million points. But she had asked. So Deku allowed her to join. She introduced herself as Mei Hatsume. And she said, "I want to try these babies out." As she holds up 2 boots, Deku asked, "What are they for?" "Oh, well, you see, they're actually hover boots. They help us float." And Deku started to put together a plan based on Uraraka's float quirk, Tokiyami's dark shadow, and Mei Hatsume's float boots. Not to mention, worst case scenario, Deku can easily just summon his army of shadow soldiers to protect us at all times. So, when the match had begun, they decided to put Uraraka on top. Now, the reasoning why they decided to put Uraraka on top was so that Uraraka can easily touch everyone with her hands. Not to mention, it would be easier with Deku on the bottom to release his shadows in case of emergencies. And also, with Deku being the main push of the entire group, it would be smart to put him on the ground. At the start of the match, Deku, Uraraka, and their whole entire team, Mei Hatsume and Tokiyami, all decided to hang back at first. There were a few teams that went after them, but Deku easily deflected most of their attacks to try to grab. Not to mention, he activated the second half of his plan, which was to start hiding shadows inside their opponent's shadow that he can summon to yank the headband off and take it back to them when he wants to. The battle kept going on. More and more people kept on trying to attack, but were blocked by Dark Shadow and Deku. And when the times got too tough, Uraraka quickly jumped up until the last 30 seconds. Shoto, who had been mainly defensive in an ice wall circle they made around him, started to run towards Deku and them. Same with Bakugou. Bakugou was quickly exploring to them. Deku smiled because seeing how they had so many shadows, that he purposely spread shadows into other people's shadows. So when they interacted with someone's shadow that did not have a shadow in it, it would switch over to their shadow. So he already had shadows inside all of Bakugou's team. But Todoroki's, he didn't have any inside because they were guarded the entire time by a giant ice ball that Todoroki had made. Because of this, as soon as Bakugou went to start attacking Deku, a shadow leaped up and stopped Bakugou straight in his tracks, as well as disarming his entire team while stealing their headbands, easily making Bakugou start to freak out. Bakugou grabbed the headband and backed off. Shadow saw this, and he was wondering how those shadows showed up out of nowhere. He didn't even see Deku do anything. But out of the corner of his eye, he saw Deku smile. As he looks towards Shoto, Shoto knows it's a horrible idea to go after Deku at this point. Seeing how he had let down the wall, he has no clue where his shadows are. Later on, in the last 10 seconds of the match, Shoto says, well, we might as well risk it all. And Yaodarozu, to her objection, Shoto just decides to start charging forward. While charging forward, he sends ice in a thin sheet and then uses Kanmari to shock the ice, which had little to no effect on Deku because he summoned out he summoned out Tank, his bear, to guard against the attack. Then Tank quickly charged towards them, trying to take them out. Tank was able to hold them back as the timer went off. Deku's team still scored the 10 million points, while Shoto's came in second, seeing how they were able to keep up their defense, and Bakugou's came in third for their impressive offense, with Shinzo's team coming in fourth. Ojiro drops out, and after dropping out, tells Deku about Shinzo's quirk. Deku isn't dumb, so he kind of already understood Shinzo's quirk, as well as he had already preemptively hit a shadow inside Shinzo's shadow that he could activate at any time. So during the fight, as soon as Shinzo went up and it was like, ready, set, go, Deku telepathically communicated to his shadow that if he were to fall under mind control, that the shadow should instantaneously chuck Shinzo out of the ring. Afterwards, Deku said, so Shinzo, how's your day today? And Shinzo says, oh, mine's is great. How's yours? And Deku responds, great. And then he got mind controlled. His shadow that was inside Shinzo's quickly activated, taking Shinzo and chucking him out of the ring, causing Shinzo to lose. Deku then became unbrainwashed, because it takes all Shinzo's concentration to brainwash a singular person, and since he was just chucked into a wall, he kind of lost the concentration. Deku walked over to Shinzo and asked him if he was alright, and Shinzo says, how did your shadow activate after you were put under my mind control? And Deku states, well, you see, my shadow is, how to put this in the best way, was already loaded with the thought saying that if anything were to happen to me, to activate and chuck you out of the ring or attempt to chuck you out of the ring. But when did the shadow get into my shadow? Back during the cavalry battle. Oh. I guess that makes sense. Afterwards, they continue on with all the fights until it gets to Deku versus Shoto. Now, Shoto's already very fearful of Deku, especially after seeing what happened last time, but he believes he'll be able to win. Before the fight started, Deku was stopped by a man with fire on his face. Deku recognized the man to be Endeavour, the second number 2 pro hero. He said, make Shinzo use his fire side. Deku's like, why the f would I do that? And then Endeavour got kind of angry at Deku, and he's like, You're defying me? Do you have no manners? Well, you just walked up to a kid who's about to go face your son, and rather than being on to cheer on your son right now, you're talking to the opponent kid asking me to beat out your son before he uses his quirk. So no, of course I'm not gonna respect you. Endeavour, his fire on his face starts to grow stronger as his anger starts to increase. And he's like, so you are disobeying me. And Deku's like, I never knew I had to obey you. He's like, why you? And Deku activated one of his skills he had attained called Bloodlust, which freaked Endeavour out just by the pure amount of fear he was feeling, as if he was staring into the void. Just out complete empty blackness. Afterwards, Deku just shrugged his shoulders and left Endeavor there, speechless. Before Endeavor could even say anything, Deku was already out. Afterwards, Deku had walked onto the stage, still thinking about what Endeavor said, but not really trying to pay too much attention to it. Todoroki says, "I know you're strong, Deku, but I'm still gonna beat you." And Deku's like, "Okay." Todoroki, "Yeah. I'm only gonna use 5% of my power." "What?" "I'm only gonna use 5% of my power. Until you use your fire side, I'm only gonna use 5%. And Todoroki gets upset by this. He's like, "What, did my father put you up to this?" "No, to be 100% truthful, I left him shit-stained inside the hallway, scared out of his mind. So no, he didn't put me up to this. I'm just informing you now. I'm only going to use 5% of my power." Todoroki then gains in anger as he starts to fire ice, but Deku easily destroys it, just batting it away. And Todoroki is shocked because he knows Deku's a pretty honest bro. He doesn't really lie often. So if Deku is being truthful about only using 5% of his power, then this is insanity. How easily he was able just to deflect all the shots Todoroki was firing at him. Fuck. Nothing's working. I would have to launch more ice blasts. And then Deku's like, "Just stop with your ice blasts. God." Todoroki launches another ice blast towards Deku. But Deku quickly and easily destroys it with a flick of his finger as he continues to walk closer and closer to Shoto. Shoto keeps firing more and more and more as Deku just keeps walking more and more. He's like, "You know, Shoto, you have a pretty cool quirk," Deku says as he blasts apart the ice wall. "You know, you have the ability to create ice and fire. Pretty amazing if you do say so yourself. Now, I understand you don't use your fire side because it's your father's quirk, but that's not true." Shoto looks upset by Deku's claims that the fire side from his dad isn't really from his dad. Shoto's like, "Oh, so it's not his quirk?" And Deku's like, "Yeah, it's not his quirk. It's yours." That would like being saying, "My quirk is just my father's quirk. And my dad and my quirk are so far apart that basically it's the length of the sun to fucking Pluto. Yeah, they're not very close." And Shoto keeps firing ice at him, starting to think about his fire quirk some more. Deku's like, "Just use it once, for Christ's sake," as he bats it away. And Deku then quickly blitzes up to Todoroki, and he's like, "Use it once, or I will beat you right here, right now." And just then and there, something in Todoroki had snapped as he expels flames from his right side and launches ice with his left. Deku quickly jumps back, prepared for the fight to actually finally begin as the crowd starts to cheer. Deku quickly rushes towards Todoroki. Todoroki fires a fire blast. Deku quickly dodges it, but then gets hit by an ice attack that was sent. Afterwards, Deku quickly fixed himself and summoned 2 shadow soldiers, just basic shadow soldiers, to run towards Todoroki with their swords. Todoroki quickly tries to deal with them, but can't. Deku's like, "Come on, Todoroki, if you can't even fight my lower rank soldiers, how will you fight my higher rank?" And then Todoroki reminds himself about the wyvern Deku was riding on earlier. And he was like, "If I can't even beat these smaller ones, then how am I meant to even fight the bigger ones?" Then Todoroki stomps his foot down in front of him, sending a massive icicle glacier-style structure towards the 2 shadow soldiers, completely freezing them inside the thing. And then using his fire, sends fire throughout the entire explosion at such a quick speed that the ice didn't even have time to melt, causing a massive explosion from the pressure of the fire. And Deku's like, "Good job. Now let's see if you can handle level 2. Deku then summons the wyvern behind him. And he's like, "Why? do your thing. Y breathes blue flames out of his mouth, while Shoto launches his yellow flames. The two flames clash in the middle with epic heat and proportions, but Y's flame starts to overpower Todoroki. Todoroki, then starting to feel the effects of using his fire side constantly, tries to activate his ice side as well to launch spikes around over towards Deku. But Deku had already anticipated this, and because of that, he doubled Y's output, basically sending Todoroki back until he hit a wall of ice he had created earlier. The wall of ice slowly kept getting more and more destroyed until Todoroki fell out of the ring, declaring Deku as the winner. Deku walked over to Todoroki and he said, "Sorry, Todoroki. It just had to be this way." "Don't worry, you did good though," Deku said as he holds out his hand to Todoroki. Todoroki accepts it, feeling good that he had finally used his fire side. Afterwards, Deku and Todoroki chatted for a bit while Ida had gained a call about his brother being injured by the hero killer. The rest of the fights played out the same until it got to Deku and Bakugou. Elsie was watching. She had gotten fitted out and knew that this was the final event of the UA Sports Festival. And that was between Deku and Bakugou, who were facing off. Bakugou was like, "I'm not gonna let you win, you shitty nerd." And Deku's like, "Oh, Bakugou, you think you can face me?" And Bakugou's like, "Yeah, fuck you. I'm gonna win," Bakugou says as he quickly tries to launch in to attack Deku. Deku then blocks this with his forearm and sends Bakugou flying backwards. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit tired. Bakugou then quickly tried to go in and attack Deku again, with once again Deku had blocked and sent Bakugou flying backwards. Bakugou came in again and again and again and again. Bakugou thought about how in hell he had the increased heat had boosted his quirk, and then he thought about how he could increase his own heat. And then Bakugou remembered, maybe if he starts sending explosions out closer to his body, not enough to give him damage, but enough to actually heat him up, maybe then, with the extra nitroglycerin sweat he creates, he could actually make big enough explosions to actually start doing damage. Bakugou started doing this, but he knew the process was slow. By that time, Deku had finally given up on the fight. Deku activated the shadows that were inside Bakugou's shadow. Bakugou was completely caught off guard by this, as he was carried out from the ring thanks to Deku's shadows. Deku was declared winner of the UA Sports Festival. Bakugou knew he didn't have much of a chance against Deku. To be 100% honest, Bakugou knew from the start. He had already seen what Deku could do compared to him. He just wanted to at least put up a decent fight. And at least he made Deku use his shadows. Afterwards, Deku had gone first, while Bakugou got second. Todoroki got third after beating Tokiami in a battle for third place. Afterwards, Deku met Elsie, and Elsie was talking with Deku about everything. Deku just laughed and talked back with her, both having a great time. The next day at school, Midnight had came in telling them that they need to select their hero names. Bakugou kept putting up names like Keen Explosion Murder, which all got denied by by Midnight. When Deku went up there, Deku thought about his name for a while, and then he put down Shadow Monarch, which Midnight approved, thinking it was just edgy, even though Deku really couldn't think of a better name, so he just looked at his class name and went with it. Elsie then went up there, and for her name, she had Flame Princess, which Deku thought was kind of accurate. She was the next head leader of one of the 16th ranked demon clans. So yeah, I guess Flame Princess works. Especially because she has an attribute for fire and wind magic. Hence the reason why we gave her the quirk name Inferno. Elsie hadn't got any internship options. So Deku went to All Might and he was like, All Might, I'm wondering, do you happen to have an old teacher that me and Elsie can intern with? I know I have gotten plenty of interns seeing how I had one, but I want to go to an intern that Elsie can also go. Do you know anyone that would allow that? And All Might was thinking, and he could only think of one personnel, and that person being Gran Torino. And All Might says, yes, there's one person, and his name is Gran Torino. You can go with him, and you can intern with him. I'll call him up today. Deku went back to Elsie and said, Elsie, we're going to go and intern with a person called Gran Torino. And Elsie was like, Gran Torino, who's that? And then Deku explains it was All Might's teacher. Oh, okay. All Might had been keeping a lot more ties on Deku, mainly because of how strong Deku is. So he's like a pretty high level threat in case of emergencies. As well as also that he knew after Elsie had came around and Deku was very adamant on taking responsibility for Elsie's case, that happened. Deku went around and then he walked into the classroom with Elsie because they had met in the hallway. Everyone else had already selected their internships. After school, Deku and Elsie went home to pack their bags and stuff to get ready for the internship. Deku realized that Elsie still really didn't have too many clothes, so Deku said, Elsie, you want to go shopping before we leave? Elsie said, shopping? ? And Deku explained, well, see, in the human world, we shop for things. And Elsie was like, oh, okay. So basically, you do trading with merchants. Yes, we do trading with merchants, in essence. But our merchants are permanently stationary, and our people bring stuff to them to sell. Elsie looked kind of confused about the conversation, but she understood. Deku took Elsie to a clothes store. Elsie had already gotten her hero costume, which was a gold and what looked to be a red crimson plated suit. Mainly because of her title name, Fire Princess, she decided to go with that design. Afterwards, Elsie had picked up all of her clothes. Deku and her went to the building where they were meant to meet the man named Gran Torino. Deku opened the door to see a man on the floor with red blood all surrounding him. Deku quickly got down on his knees to inspect the man, but the man quickly sat up and said, oh, I spilt my ketchup. Gran Torino laughed. Deku looking at Gran Torino with a kind of shocked face. He's like, who are you? And Deku stated, hi, my name is Izuku Midoriya. I'm here to intern with you. This is my friend, Elsie. And Gran Torino was like, oh, so you're the kid who brought the demon girl from the different dimension. And Deku instantaneously froze up and he's like, oh my, what did you tell him? How much did you tell him? Gran Torino's like, okay, yeah, I see. So, you're from a different dimension. He looked towards Elsie. Elsie was like, yes, under base understanding, we assume I'm from a different dimension. I'm Elsie. I'm the daughter and heir to the 16th ranked demon clan. Okay. And you are. I'm Izuku Midoriya, the Shadow Monarch. And Gran Torino asked, Shadow Monarch? What do you mean by that? And Deku explained, well, you see, Shadow Monarch is the level up from Necromancer. Gran Torino was like, wait a minute. So not only can you open portals to different dimensions, You can also resurrect the enemies you kill. Yes. And you do that for training. Yes. Yeah, he roughly killed around 4,000 of my kind before I ran into him. Gran Torino's mouth just opened wide, and he's like, "You've killed 4,000 of their kind, intelligent demons? Demons that look like people that can speak?" Well, no, he killed unintelligent demons. Demons that, at base, couldn't actually think logically. He had killed them. They were much more of beasts than actual humans, as you put it. Gran Torino was thinking about this pretty hard. He's like, a murder's still a murder, but would you count it hunting at that point? Deku's like, don't worry about it. And what do you mean by Shadow Monarch? Well, Shadow Monarch's the level up to Necromancer. Think of it as like a tier 2 variation of Necromancer. And so, do you have a quirk, he asked Elsie? And Elsie explains, no, I don't have a quirk, but I have attributes for wind and fire magic. So, when I combine those two magics together, I create a really powerful fire. Hence the reason why we named my quirk, in quotation marks, which is really just my magic, Inferno. And also hence why my name is Fire Princess. And Gran Torino understands. And Gran Torino's like, okay, to start off, we'll start off by doing some basic training. You'll spar against me. Deku said, okay. So Gran Torino started bouncing off the walls, doing his normal thing, but when he came in for a kick, Deku quickly blocked it and then punched Gran Torino away. Gran Torino was quite surprised by this because his speed was almost unmatched by anyone. No one could really match Gran Torino's speed in an indoors closed location. So Gran Torino comes in again, this time trying to attack Elsie. Deku also blocked that one as well. Gran Torino's like, this boy, his speed is faster than mine. His reaction time is too. That's amazing. Gran Torino said, okay, that's enough. I can clearly see you're strong. But you, on the other hand, he said, pointing to Elsie, you need to train. Elsie was like, aw, but why do I need to train? And Gran Torino explained, you couldn't even defend against a single attack, nor did you know where the attack was coming from. Deku saved you and stopped you from getting kicked in the face and sent flying. Elsie was like, okay. So for the next 2 weeks, Deku and Elsie trained with Gran Torino. And then one day, Gran Torino's like, so we're going to go to a city. In this city, and we're going to go hunt villains. And Deku said, but we can't. We both don't have our hero license. Or our early vice, whatever it's called, hero license. Don't worry about that. You really don't have to care about that. Okay. Deku and Elsie both went with Gran Torino to the city. While they were on the train, out of nowhere, a Nomu jumped through the car. Deku instantaneously recognized it as a Nomu. And then he told Gran Torino, that's known as a Nomu. They were quite furious, and the Nomu almost beat All Might, and if it wasn't for Nomu wouldn't have been stopped. And then Gran Torino asked Noma, well, Nomu are resurrected dead, so I could actually extract the soul from it. Noma is the extracted soul from Nomu, but I nicknamed it Noma. Here you go. Deku quickly sends Nomu into Gran Torino's shadow. When you get there to fight it, Noma will come out and assist you in battle. Okay? You can tell it to do whatever you want. Oh, okay. With that being said, Deku quickly hops out of the train car, and tells Elsie to follow him. Elsie asks why, and he's like, because my friend Ida had told me before we left that his brother had gone attacked by the hero killer staying in this city. And if I remember correctly, Ida went to this city. And I have a bad feeling with all these Nomu running around. Elsie's like, okay, I understand. Elsie had basically gotten a full grasp of how this world works and how everything else works by this point. And she actually quite enjoyed it here. She found it to be a lot better than her home back home. So she was going to ask her father when she came back if she could stay over in the human world for a while longer and explore it and understand it even more. Deku and Elsie quickly ran around. Deku said, "The hero killer Stain's known for attacking heroes in alleys. Check alleyways." Elsie stayed with Deku though because she didn't know the city nearly as well as Deku did. Deku found an alleyway with the hero killer Stain in it. He quickly tried to go up and punch Stain, but Stain had barely missed the attack. Ida had said, "Get out of here! This isn't your fight, Izuku. I'll take care of him myself." And Deku looks towards Ida, who's on the ground with a knife in his back, and he's like, "Shut up! You are literally on the ground, about to die. Shut up. I don't care about your family pride. I care about saving you." And Hero Killer Stain gets kind of excited by this because this boy is a true hero. He had just said that he didn't care if this person wanted to be saved or not. He is going to be saved. Deku then went and assisted Ida by getting the knife out of his back while Elsie fired fire magic towards Stain. Ida could see that Elsie was here too, and he's like, "Elsie?" And Elsie's like, "Hello, Ida. It's been a while," as she fired more fire blasts, and then started sending wind blasts towards Stain as well, which cut Stain a little bit, which surprised Stain and caught Stain off guard. Stain quickly chucked a dagger towards Elsie while Deku propped Ida up against the wall, cutting her, and then he quickly licked the dagger, but Elsie was unaffected by it. Stain's like, "What? Why isn't my quirk working?" And Deku thought, well, that's not really human blood, so maybe that might be the reason, but he didn't want to tell Stain. Deku quickly turned around and chucked one of his own daggers at Stain. Deku doesn't usually chuck his daggers around at people, but he knew it, that he was going to have to do it. So after chucking the dagger at Stain, Stain was caught off guard because this dagger had just came out of nowhere. It was a red dagger, a pretty beautiful one at that. Afterwards, Deku, using Dominator's Touch, cut both of the back of the calves of Stain, making Stain become almost immovable. Afterwards, he quickly punched Stain, knocking Stain out. He later on called the police, and the police had arrived on scene. The credit for taking down Stain went to Gran Torino, mainly just because Gran Torino was the one mentoring the two children who had taken down Stain. Deku and Elsie were both reprimanded for using their quirks. Ida was too, but not nearly as much. And that's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.